Hello friends, today I have a very interesting essay for you. It is titled Of Love, written by Francis Bacon again. Now I am not going to give any introduction to the topic love. Let us see what our master Francis Bacon has to say about it. And throughout the play, throughout the essay, as I read it, I feel that he is not much in favor of love. He seems to be concentrating more on the negative sides of love. Anyway, let's go through the essay. So this is the opening line. The stage is more beholding to love than the life of man. For as to the stage, love is ever matter of comedies, and now and then of tragedies. But in life it doth much mischief, sometimes like a siren, sometimes like a fury. Okay, so he says that the stage here is the theatre or drama. So the stage or theatre is indebted, is more beholding, you can interpret it that way. It is very much indebted to love, because love is an evergreen theme or a topic for drama. And so he says, on stage you see so many plays, so many plays with love as the central theme. Some of them are comedies, some of them are tragedies. But he says, in life, love always creates trouble, mischief, trouble. Sometimes love is like a siren, sometimes it's like a fury. Now, siren and fury, they are all from mythology. In Greek mythology, siren is actually a creature. It's half bird and half woman, and the siren could sing beautifully, and so she would sing. I think there are a couple of sirens, not just one or two or three sirens are there, and so they would sing. And the sailors, listening to the sweet song, would be attracted towards her, and then she would destroy them. So that is the siren. So sometimes love is like a siren, because in some cases men fall in love with enchantresses, women who kind of attract them, lure them away from their goals in life, from the rest of their family and from their friends. They just take them away. So that is why he says that sometimes love is like a siren. It is like an enchantress that takes you away from all good things and destroys you. And sometimes it is like a fury. A fury again is from mythology. This is from Roman mythology. They are called furies in the Roman mythology, and these very same characters are called Erinyes in Greek mythology. So the furies were three goddesses of vengeance who lived in the underworld, and so they could fly. They were flying creatures, and they had sharp fangs and claws, and they hunted down murderers. Actually, there are three sisters. I'll give you the names: Alecto, Tisiphone and Megara. These are the three furies, and they were sent out to bring justice to people who commit. When somebody commits crime, these people were sent. These three furies were sent to punish them. So furies. So sometimes furies, they are generally furious. They are very angry and violent. And so what he means to say is that sometimes love is like a fury. That is, it destroys the people who are in love, because either it is like an enchantress and lures you away, or it destroys you like the fury. Because there are many cases where lovers turn enemies, and maybe one person would leave the other person and go off, and the other person becomes vengeful and he takes revenge. He tries to kill her, and in present times, you know how it is, you have all these acid attacks. So those are cases, those are examples of cases where the love becomes as vengeful as a fury. So he says, in theatre, on the stage, love may be very attractive. It looks very attractive. But then in real life, love always creates trouble. Or in most cases, it creates trouble. Sometimes it acts like a siren. Sometimes it acts like a fury. And then, you may observe that amongst all the great and worthy persons, whereof the memory remaineth, either ancient or recent, there is not one, and that that hath been transported to the mad degree of love, which shows that great spirits and great business do keep out of this weak passion. So he says that if you do a careful study of all the great personalities in history, whether ancient or recent, you just take a list of all of them and look at them, and you will find that not even one has been madly in love. There is not one that had been transported to the mad degree of love. Of course, many great men have been in love, but nobody has been madly in love. And so what does that is a proof of something. What does that prove? It shows that great spirits and great business do keep out of this weak passion. So great minds, great men, they avoid love as a weak passion. So that is what you learn from this, from the fact that great men don't fall madly in love. It shows that they don't consider love as a worthy passion. They consider love as something weak, something that destroys people. And then after he says this, he goes on to give us exceptions. He says, you must accept, nevertheless, Marcus Antonius, the half-partner of the Empire of Rome, and Appius Claudius, the decemvir and lawgiver, whereof the former was indeed a voluptuous man and inordinate, but the latter was an austere and wise man. And therefore it seems, though rarely, that love can find entrance not only into an open heart, but also into a heart well fortified, if watch be not well kept. So he says, yes, it's true, as I have said, that great people don't generally indulge in mad love. But there have been exceptions. He gives us 2 examples of men, of great men who have been in love, that too madly in love. One example is Marcus Antonius. Marcus Antonius, you know, is Mark Antony, who lived at the time of Julius Caesar, and he along with Lepidus and Octavius, he formed the Roman triumvirate. He was one of the Roman rulers, and then you know what happened to him. He fell in love with this queen of Egypt called Cleopatra the 7th. And then, influenced by her, he took many wrong decisions, and finally it ended in the death of both of them. He committed suicide because for the fear of being captured by Octavius. Okay, so that is so. Mark Antony's love led him to his own ruin. And then another case mentioned here is Appius Claudius. Appius Claudius was a decemvir and lawgiver. Decemvir, in ancient Rome, there was this council of 10 wise men. They were the lawmakers. And so Appius Claudius was a very learned man, a scholar, a respected person. And he also fell in love, and this was not exactly love. He actually lusted. There's a lot of difference between love and lust, I guess. So because lust is just purely physical, whereas love is something that lasts longer. That is how we would like to believe. And so he saw a very beautiful young girl, hardly a very young girl, hardly a teenager, I guess, whose name was Virginia, and she was the daughter of Lucius Virginius. And the moment he saw her, he wanted to get her, and he lusted after her, and he played a lot of dirty tricks to get her. But she refused to reciprocate his feelings. And this man, Appius Claudius, was pretty old at that time, and this girl was, as I told you, hardly a teenager. So this old man, Appius Claudius, could not control his sexual urge and lust for Virginia, and finally what happened was this girl's father, Lucius Virginius, had to kill her in order to protect her from Appius. So that is the story of Appius Claudius. So in both these cases, both these great men were great. That is, Marcus Antonius and Appius Claudius were great men, intelligent men, but in spite of that they fell in love. He says the former was indeed a voluptuous man and inordinate. Former here refers to Marcus Antonius, Mark Antony. Marcus Antony was a voluptuous and inordinate man. Voluptuous in the sense a pleasure seeker and a very passionate man, and inordinate means somebody who lacked self-control. But in the case of Appius Claudius, he was a very serious man, austere, and a wise man, But in spite of that, this happened. And so Bacon warns. He says, it seems that love can find entrance not only into an open heart. Here Marcus Antonius's heart was very open, ready to admit anybody who came in. But that was not the case of the other man. So his was a heart well fortified. It was a heart that was well guarded. Fortified means guarded. Yet this proves that if watch be not well kept, if you are not careful, anybody, even a very serious man, a very learned and a wise man like Appius too, can fall in love. So love, you have to be very careful about it, because it can get into your heart if you don't keep watch. So that is what he says about great men and falling in love. And then the next point, it is a poor saying of Epicurus. And there is a Latin sentence here, Sanctis magnum alter alteri theatrum sumus. I wonder whether that is how it is to be read. Anyway, it translates like this into English. We are a sufficient theme of contemplation for each other, as if man made for the contemplation of heaven and all noble objects should do nothing but kneel before a little idol and make himself a subject, though not of the mouth as beasts are, yet of the eye, which was given him for higher purposes. So he says, I don't agree with the saying of Epicurus. Epicurus is a philosopher, an ancient Greek philosopher. And Epicurus, it seems, said that we are a sufficient theme of contemplation for each other. He said maybe he was talking about two individuals who were in love with each other. And he says that man is a sufficient theme for contemplation for each other. Two people, they can spend their whole lifetime looking at each other and contemplating on each other. So that is what Epicurus said. But then Bacon says, I don't agree with that. That's why he says it's a poor saying. It's a kind of a very stupid kind of a statement that Epicurus has made when he said that we are a sufficient theme of contemplation for each other, as if man. And he says, see, man was made for contemplation of heaven. Contemplation is to think about heaven, to examine very lofty things, to do research on serious things around him. And so, as if man made for contemplation of heaven and all noble objects should do nothing but kneel before a little idol. So he's making fun of people who are in love. When a person is in love, he is enamored with his lover, with the lady love, if we are talking about men, okay? And then, so what he would do is, he would all the time kneel in front of this lady love, and he would spend all his attention on her. And so that is why he says it appears as if man was made for this. For what? That is to sit or kneel down in front of a little idol. Little idol here is the lover, and make himself a subject, though not of the mouth, yet of the eye. So animals live for their mouth, in the sense, mouth here symbolizes hunger. So hunger is the thing that prompts animals to do whatever, because they don't have anything else to bother about. So when they're hungry, they hunt. Otherwise they take rest, or the hunger is the only kind of a feeling or instinct that prompts them to move around. But that is not the case with human beings. We are a nobler sort. And so here he makes himself a subject of the eye. Not like animals, not of the mouth but of the eye, means he spends all his time sitting and looking at his lover, which was given him for higher purposes. So Bacon is totally disdainful of such people, such men who forget the whole world, who forget their purpose in life and simply spend all their time with their lovers. So he says the eye was given to human beings for higher purposes. It was given to look around, to look at the wonders that God created for us, to look around the universe, to observe things, to learn things, to discover new things. That is why the eye was given to human beings. And what a waste it is for a man to spend all his efficiency and all his talent on one particular person, that is his lover. So he doesn't agree with this at all. And then he says, it is a strange thing to note the excess of this passion and how it braves the nature and value of things by this, that the speaking in a perpetual hyperbole is comely in nothing but in love. So he says it's very strange what love does to people, because it braves nature, it braves the values of things, because braves here, it goes against, it challenges nature. And people in love always speak in perpetual hyperbole. Hyperbole, you know, is it is a poetic device. It is a device of exaggeration, of kind of blowing something out of proportion. So that is hyperbole. And so he says lovers always speak in perpetual hyperbole. They always, means a person who is in love always speaks highly of his lover. He feels that she is the most beautiful person in the whole world, that she is the best woman to tread on earth, that she is the best thing that has ever happened to him. So that everything in best and the highest, in superlative, that is what you mean by hyperbole. And so he says this is quite unnatural, because it goes against nature. Because a very ordinary looking person, a person may not even be beautiful, but when somebody is in love with that person feels that this ordinary looking girl has suddenly been transformed into the prettiest thing that ever walked on earth. So that is why he says it braves nature, it braves the value of things. Neither is it merely in the phrase, for whereas it hath been well said that the arch flatterer, with whom all the petty flatterers have intelligence, is a man's self, certainly the lover is more. So he says the arch flatterer is the self. That is, all human beings, each individual thinks very highly of himself. Now I might think that I am the best, you might think that you are the best. So the self is the arch flatterer. And when you are in love, you exceed this, because then you start feeling that another person is much more beautiful, much better than you. And so that's why he says, certainly the lover is more. For there was never proud man thought so absurdly well of himself as the lover doth of the person loved. And therefore, so he says, even the proudest person wouldn't have thought so well of himself as a lover thinks of his lover. So a lover is blind. You must have heard that love is blind. So that is what Bacon says, that a lover doesn't see any of the faults of the other person. He sees only the good things. He sees only the best things. He sees everything in the superlative. And therefore he says, it is well said that it is impossible to love and to be wise. So somebody has said, and he agrees totally, 100%, he says, I agree to that saying, that you cannot love and be wise at the same time. That is, he says that only foolish men love. Because a wise person, a person with some kind of common sense, some kind of wisdom, will not fall madly in love. So that is why he quotes this line and says, it is impossible to love and to be wise, both at the same time. Okay, now the next line. Neither doth this weakness appear to others only, and not to the party loved, but to the loved most of all, except the love be reciproque. For it is a true rule that love is ever rewarded, either with a reciproque or with an inward and secret contempt. So he says, now this weakness of the lover. Now, if you look at a person who is in love, if you listen to a person in love, you can very easily find out that he is lost, that he is totally enamored, that he has given himself completely up to this passion of love, that he has become a slave of this lover. It's very clear, the way they talk and the way they look at the lover. We have seen people like that. And so he says, it's not just the others, but even the lover too can see this. She too can perceive the behavior of this man. And if the love is reciprocated, the other person may not see. That's why he says, except the love be reciprocal. Because if you love a person madly and the other person too loves you, then both of you will not see the faults of each other. So both of you would be loving like this, and you will not find anything wrong there. But For it is a true rule that love is ever rewarded, either with reciproc or with inward and secret contempt. So when you love a person, there are two possibilities of things happening. One, the other person will also love you just like that. That is what he means by reciproc. Love would be reciprocated with equal passion as you love that person. So then both are equally mad. Then the other condition is that, the other case is that the other person may not have any love for you. The more silly you behave, the more ridiculous the other person would think you are. So in that case, when love is not reciprocated, the other person or the person towards whom you are pouring out your love would be irritated with you, and that person would have an inward and secret contempt for you. That person will have no respect for you. She would consider that you are such a fool. She would be contemptuous of you. So these are the only two possibilities. In the next line he says, by how much the more men ought to beware of this passion, which loseth not only other things but itself. As for other losses, the poet's relation doth well figure them, that he that preferred Helena quitted the gifts of Juno and Pallas. For whosoever esteemeth too much of amorous affection quitteth both riches and wisdom. Okay, now Bacon is giving more and more frightening information of love. He has already told us that love is a troublesome passion, it's a weak passion. Nobody with any sense would fall in love and all that. And then he says you cannot be in love and be wise at the same time, and you would behave very, very ridiculously when you are in love. You would not see the faults of the other person. So he gave us a list of the demerits of being in love, and now he continues. Okay, he says, now I'll tell you something more that will warn you to beware of this passion called love. And he says, when a person falls in love, he loses not only other things, but he also loses himself. And he gives the example from Homer. Okay, the poet here, it is the reference is to Homer, and he talks about Troy. This here he's talking about, the story of Paris and Helen of Troy. Okay, and so it is said that Paris was asked to judge. There was some kind of a competition. I'm not telling you the whole story. And a golden apple, a magical golden apple is the prize. And the competition was that he should decide who is the most beautiful of these three goddesses. One was Aphrodite, the other was Pallas, and the other was Juno. So these three goddesses, Aphrodite, Juno and Pallas. So of these, Paris had to decide who is the most beautiful, and he had to give this golden apple as the prize for the winner. And it is said that these three goddesses met him in secret and they tried to influence him. They tried to tempt him with all kind of promises. So Aphrodite told him that she will give him the most beautiful woman on earth. Juno promised to give him all the powers and the riches in this world. Pallas told him that she will give him all the wisdom in this world. And finally, what did Paris choose? Or who did Paris choose? Paris chose Aphrodite. And so he got the most beautiful woman, or Helen of Troy, as the gift, because Aphrodite had promised him to give the most beautiful woman. But what happened? What was the end result? He lost. He gave up both riches and wisdom. Instead, he opted for love or for beauty. And finally, in the end, what happened was that he lost his country, he lost his lover, and he also lost his life. That is why he says, love is a dangerous passion. It will not only take away other things from you, it will take yourself away from you. You will lose yourself, as you can see in the case of Paris. Then he says, this passion hath his floods in very times of weakness, which are great prosperity and great adversity. Though this latter had been less observed, both which times kindle love and make it more fervent, and therefore show it to be the child of folly. So he says, people can fall in love at any time, but there are some particular periods in life or phases in life when you have more of a tendency to fall in love. That is, those are both are times of weakness. One, when you are in great prosperity, when you are you are a very rich man, or you have a lot of wealth around you. So you know that wealth always attracts people. So when you are very rich, there is a tendency for you to fall in love. And another thing is great adversity. When you are in deep trouble, when you are in extremely difficult situations, there too you might fall in love. So he says the second case is not, it is less compared to the earlier one, because when in prosperity, why is there a tendency to fall in love? Because everything is available to you, and not only that, women might come towards you, flocking towards you, seeing your wealth, and so you might be exposed to a lot of beautiful women who would profess their love to you. So it's easy for you to fall for the temptation. And so he says, at both such times, love is kindled in the hearts of people, and so he says you should not fall in love at that time, because both these times are times of weakness. So definitely if you fall in at that time, that love would be a child of folly. It would be foolishness to fall in love when you are in any of these two conditions. And then the next line, they do best who, if they cannot but admit love, yet make it keep quarters, and sever it wholly from the serious affairs and actions of life. For if it check once with business, it troubleth men's fortunes, and maketh men that they can no ways be true to their own ends. So he says, okay, if at all a person decides to fall in love, it's fine. They do best who, if they cannot but admit love. Okay, there is no other, you cannot keep away yourself from love, you have to fall in love. Okay, fine. But then just remember to keep, yet make it keep quarters, restrain it, control it, cut it away, keep it far away from your serious affairs. Means serious affairs, he means career, business, whatever, such things. So don't mix love with your work. Just like you say that don't mix drinking and driving, same way, don't mix love and work. Keep these two separate, because if you get too much involved in love, what will happen is you will lose interest in your work, and as a result you will lose your hold, your grip on your work. So that is the idea there. So sever it. Sever means cut it. Okay, keep it away wholly from serious affairs and actions of life. For if it check once with business, check in the sense if they come in contact, then it will trouble men's fortunes, and it will make men that they can no ways be true to their own ends. So it will take away their minds from what they have been doing. It will distract them. They will not be able to do justice to their work. So love will destroy your profession and your career. So keep it away from that. That's a warning. Okay. Then, I know not how, but martial men are given to love. I think it is but as they are given to wine. For perils commonly asked to be paid in pleasures. So that's a random observation he makes. He says, I don't know why, but martial men means men, warriors, soldiers, such men very easily fall in love. And he says, I think it is because it's just like they're given to wine. No, soldiers or such martial men, they also have another addiction, wine. Most of the soldiers that he knows, maybe, they are all given to wine. So wine and women, both these things are a weakness for martial men. And he says, I wonder why. And then he finds a reason. He says, for perils commonly asked to be paid in pleasures. Because these men are constantly faced with peril or danger, because they are in the battlefield. Any moment they can be killed, they can be attacked from behind or from front, or they live in constant peril. So maybe they are trying to compensate for this peril, for this very perilous existence, by indulging in pleasure whenever they can. So maybe that is the reason. So he finds a justification for as to why martial men are wont to be attracted towards wine and women. So it's because they are trying to compensate the perils by indulging in pleasures. Then there is in man's nature a secret inclination and motion towards love of others. Now the next line, there is in man's nature a secret inclination and motion towards love of others, which if it not be spent upon some one or a few, doth naturally spread itself towards many, and maketh men become humane and charitable, as is seen sometime in friars. So he says, human beings, they have a very secret inclination, or I guess it's a natural tendency to seek love from others. You have an inclination and a motion towards love of others. You are always attracted towards love. So if you don't find one person on whom you can spend your love, or a few, one maybe a lover, few in the sense maybe family, if you don't have that, your love would spread towards many people. Now this is the case of priests, friars, okay? So because they they have this tendency to love, and because they don't fix their love on any particular one person, their love spreads. This point he has mentioned it in the essay of Marriage and Single Life. There he says that priests and such people, they shouldn't get married, because if they if they marry or if they have a family, all their affection would flow into a pool. The family is like a pool where all the water is collected, and so the water cannot flow out into the whole garden. It will not benefit others. So that is what he says there. So here too he says that for people like priests who don't fix their love onto just any one person, their love and affection flows towards many. So they are very humane and charitable. Their love is all encompassing. Okay. And then he talks about different kinds of love. He says nuptial love, that is love between a husband and a wife. Okay, a married relationship. Nuptial love maketh mankind. So that kind of love, it maketh mankind, means it leads to procreation. Out of nuptial love, children are born. So it maketh mankind. Mankind is perpetuated because of this kind of love, nuptial love, married love. Because at all times we know the children born out of wedlock, they are considered to be illegitimate, and it is not considered good to have a child outside wedlock. So that is why he specifies nuptial love, love between husband and wife. It makes mankind, it creates, it produces offspring, or it brings forth progeny. Friendly love perfecteth it. So friendly love, love between friends, it perfects mankind. It makes the life of mankind, of human beings, more wholesome. So friendship is a beautiful kind of a love. But he says, wanton love corrupteth it and embaseth it. Wanton love, we already came across, wanton is a common word that is used. Wanton here is love that is kind of sexually unrestrained, having many casual sexual relationships with many people. That kind of love is a bad thing. He says it corrupts mankind, it embaseth mankind. It is not advisable for people to engage in that kind of love, where you go on, where you it is more than a passion of a spirit, it is a passion of the body. It is lust actually. So that is what he calls wanton love. He doesn't advocate wanton love. He says it's a very bad thing because it corrupts, it distorts, it destroys mankind, and it embases, it degrades mankind. So respectable human beings should not engage in this kind of wanton love. So that is what Bacon says about love. So many things he has mentioned. Now, on the whole, he seems to have kind of an aversion towards love. He doesn't advocate love as a wonderful thing, though he says towards the end that nuptial love makes mankind and friendly love. But then otherwise he is not a man who supports a kind of all forgetting or an extremely passionate love. He seems to be a very level-headed person who ignores such weak passions. Anyway, I guess we can definitely understand all those things that he says, because whether we agree or not, these are all things that we have all seen or experienced or read about. So that is yet another wonderful essay by Francis Bacon of love.